Not me, I didn't make much of it. I got the one from me. It was just the
One,
news
two,
by
three,
it.
four, about 6 lines from the bottom. You cast in the base.
Mayor threw me under the bus.
Darish Rav Shimon Pasi. Ashria ish. Again, this is the pasuk in the hill that people know. It's the opening line. Does so Ashria ish Asher loy holach l'karkasiyas. They don't go to theaters. They don't go to the circuses. Shalai v'kechavim. Right? Rashi says partiyos paltin. The kind of halls. V'chol devreim k'shein esofim l'schaik l'latzim. For the purpose of levity and jest and being gesturing. Nothing good's happening there. Rashi says they would have seems like a fox hunt, guys. Look at Rashi, the bottom Rashi. Kinigyon, say the schaya, they club him, capturing animals through dogs. Tally ho, right? The dogs and they run after the fox. The fox always wins. Never saw him catch the fox. No, that's the purpose. So you should be at Yashav. I'm not doing anything negative. I'll go chap a shluf. No, you shouldn't go to those places, and not only Sumeira, but Asay Toiv, you should go ahead and be involved with the Limud HaTorah. Amar Shum ben Achmeni Am Yonasan Ashriya Ish Shaloi Halach Ba'atzis V'Shayim. Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was not part of the Atzis V'Shayim. Shaloi Halach Ba'atzis Anshei Dor Haflaga. So Avram Avinu, it's interesting. I had this here. I should have printed it out. There's a timeline. So it's a timeline over here. You can notice on the timeline when Avram was born.
48.
Yeah. So Avram was born in the year 1948, right? Right? It was 1948? Okay, so Avram was, now, if you look at the year that it was 1948, and Peleg, and no, you don't, none of you have this. I
just took it out of my Gemara.
Okay, anyway, so the Haflaga was in 1996. The Haflaga, so Avram was at the time he was 48 years old at the time of Haflaga. So in other words, he was alive during the Dor Haflaga. But that's the point. The point is he was alive at that time, and so he wasn't part of the Atzas Rishoyim. The Dor Haflaga we spoke about in the Gemara in Chelek, and they went ahead and they rebelled against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. They built this migdal. So Avram was not part of that Atzas Rishoyim. Shenemar, they said, "Havo nivnu lanu ir." Let's go build a city. Okay. The pasuk continues, and the derech of chatoim does not stand. Shloi amad ba'midas sedaim. He didn't stand with the sedaim, with the shachatoim hayud. Shenemar, pasuk in the Torah is very, very clear. The anshe sedaim royim v'chatoim Hashem ha'oid. Right, we spoke about the men that the aver of Sodom was that they were lacking chesed, that they would go ahead and they would make it a horrible experience to come to Sodom. But they loved money and they wanted to keep their money. And Avram was not part of that. He wasn't part of the Dar Flug. He wasn't part of the Anshe Sodom. He wasn't part, even though he lived in the Eretz Plishtim, but he wasn't involved with the Plishtim. Why was wrong with the Plishtim? If they should let Sanim Hayu, they will let Sanim. They were jokers. Shenemar by Hiketov Libam. This is much later, guys. This was be made by Shimshon. Let's go ahead. We'll get Shimshon and we'll go ahead and make schik for him. And the end, the schik was on them because Shimshon went ahead and knocked down the walls and killed them. But the bottom line is, you see that they went into schik. So Avram Avinu was not involved with any. Now it says Ashriya Ish Asher. This pasuk is not telling Aleph. This is Kuf Yud Beis. Ashriya Ish Yirias Hashem. Ashriya Ish Ashriya Isha. Right? Ashriya Ish Ashriya Isha. So l'chayr you can ask the kasha, guys. We didn't ask this question before. It's not the first Ashrei Ish we're bringing in. So if you look at the other, it says Ashrei Ha'ish. And here's this Ashrei Ish. Look at top Taisvis. Ashrei Ish v'lei Ashrei Isha. Aval el gali Ashrei ha'ish lei dayikachi. We don't make a diak men with that woman. The Ish mashma lemute Isha. When it says just the word Ish, that means excluding a woman. The ha'ish, but the man mashma lemute Ish acher, another man. Ha'ish, right? When you say without a hey, it's Ish and not a woman. When you say ha'ish to this particular man, it means the verse is not another man. So therefore, explaining the pasuk before was Ashrei Ish, right? But this Ashrei Ish, and therefore what? So we're asking a kasha, Ashrei Ish, Ashrei Isha. So Rav Amram says Rav Amram, Amarav, Ashrei Misha Oiset Shuva Kishu Ish. Fortunate is the one who does tshuva when he is an ish, when he's a gibor, when he's young, Rashi Kishu Ish, Kishu Bachar, Bekoiche Kloima, Memahar quickly. Lahake boy, he quickly recognizes his creator. Koidim yemei azikna. Old age has a way of going ahead and making it easier to do tshuva. You don't have the hormones of youth. You don't have the vitality of youth, and you get older. So it's easy to do tshuva. So Asher, you want to do tshuva b'chol koichai would be when you Asher ish. So when you are an ish, then that's when the best time to do tshuva. Ben Levi Omer. Asher Mishim is Gabriel Yitzroi Keish. Fortunate is the one who's misgaber of his Yetzirah Keish, like a gibor. He overcomes his Yetzirah. The mitzvahs of Chafetz Ma'od. This continues the pasuk. The pasuk continues. He loves his mitzvahs very much, right? Amar Rabbi Lazar b'mitzvaysav leibeschaim mitzvaysav. And he does the purpose, the mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah, right? V'lei b'schaim mitzvaysav, but not for the schar of the mitzvah. V'ayin det nan. Who hayu aimer? This antigna shisocho. Who hayu aimer in avos? Altiuk. We all know this. Altiuk havodim hamisham shemes arav al manas lekabel pras. We shouldn't be like avodim who are mishamesh the master to get rewarded. Ella hayu kavodim misham shemes arav shlei al manas lekabel pras. Okay, so that's the limit. Okay, let's spend a little time on this. So what's the idea of serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu without the purpose of mimim kabel pras? So what does Rashi say? First, al manash shalei kabel pras is Rashi. You libcha imay, your lave should be with Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Your mind should be with Hashem. Loimar, afilu ein soifer lekabel schar. Even if the end I'm not going to get schar. Oyev ani es boiri. I love my Creator. The chafetz b'mitzvaysav, and I desire His mitzvahs. So a person should not think, even in the end, I'm not going to get rewarded. In other words, you should. What it means, you should put it in your mind that I'm not going to be rewarded. Even if I'm not going to be rewarded, I'm going to do it. Rashi links to this, guys. In other words, even though in the end I'm not going to be rewarded, I'm going to do it anyway. Says Tosfos, second Tosfos, Almanas l'kabel pras, pirish b'toya. You're wondering, in other words, you're davening and it's not happening. You're doing mitzvahs and you're wondering why. What do they do? I did this and this and this, so how come I'm not being rewarded? If you're not wondering about it, so in other words, if you're not supposed to go ahead and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with in mind that what to be rewarded, and we're wondering when I'm going to be rewarded, but it doesn't mean you can't serve him in order to be rewarded. You can't think about it, but like Taisvis, you could think about what? Says Taisvis clearly says, quoting a Gemara, you could do a mitzvah for the purpose of a reward coming about. And if it doesn't come about, so be it. That's what it means. If it doesn't come about, so be it. But you shouldn't go ahead and wonder about it. That's Taisvis, a little different than Rashi. Now, what does the Rambam say? Okay, that I sent out today. The Rambam. You look at the Rambam. I sent it out on your phones. You should have it. Okay, the Rambam is in Hilchos Tshuva. Get an early start, right? After July 4th, already. Yeah. So this is in the 10th parak in Hilchos Tshuva in the Rambam. Al Yayma Adam, person can say, Areini Oise mitzvahs hatayra, the Oisik b'chachmasa. I'll do I'll be do mitzvahs of the Torah. I'll be oisik in its chachma kadesh kabel abrachos haksuva b'Torah in order to makabel the brachos that it says in the Torah, which meaning in this world, in this world, oikidei she'eskel l'chayelam haba, or I should be zeicha to the next world. The efresh mina aveiros, and the reason why I don't do aveiros sheziru Torah mihen kidei she'inatzel mina klalos haksuva b'Torah, that I shouldn't be rewarded, I shouldn't be punished. Oikidei she'ikaris m'chayelam haba, I shouldn't be cut off. A person shouldn't serve Hashem for reward in this world or the next. A person shouldn't go ahead and say, I'm not going to do Averis. In other words, the mitzvah, there's two things. He's addressing the mitzvahs asay and the mitzvahs lois asay. The first part's the mitzvahs asay, performing the mitzvahs asay. Don't do that in order to what? Be rewarded. And lois asay, to separate from Averis, that should be punished. Right? Ein roi lavet Hashem al derech zeh. It's not right to serve Hashem for that. Sha'ovid al derech zeh, a person who does serve this way, who oivid miyira, ve'ena milas hanavim, v'lei milas chachamim. Ve'en oivid es Hashem al derech zeh, ela ami oretz, v'hanoshim, v'aketanim shemechamchem esloi, lavad miyira, ad shetarbe daiton, v'yavoi mi'ava. Now, this is a very sad thing. This is a very sad thing. Why? Because you're all smiling, that's a little smirk, because we all grew up with this, right? If you're a good boy, where are you going? And if you're a bad boy, where are you going? And for some reason, we don't grow out of that. We don't grow out of that. We keep the again, the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu should not be dependent upon what's going to be in the next world or what's going to be in this world. It should be totally dependent upon serving Hashem for the sake of Hashem. And if you don't make that transition, then it's a difficult life. You don't make that transition, it's a difficult life. And trust me, as a principal for many years, I instilled this in the girls. I spoke about it, that this Judeo-Christian idea of, okay, you're going to go to, where and this and that. It's that's not, Hashem didn't create the world for that. And Hashem doesn't want you to serve that way. Hashem doesn't want you to think that way. That's just the way you start thinking. That's just the way you start thinking. Yeah.
First thing you did,
Okay. Good. It's true. But why are you doing mitzvahs? It's not a stira. It's not a stira. That adrabah, that will instill perhaps an ava. Look, I'm going to have to give a din chesh in front of Melech Malchem Melech Kodesh Baruch Hu. Ha'ovid me'ava, what's halacha beis? Ha'ovid me'ava oisik b'toyer v'mitzvahs v'hoylech b'nesivis in the ways of chachma. Lo mifnei dava ba'olam, not because of anything in this world. Lo mifnei yiras hara, v'lo kidei liyarish toiva. None of that reason. Ela oisa emes, mifnei shu emes. You do the emes because it's emes. V'seifa toiva love b'chlal. In the end, any good is going to come. But you do it because Hashem Elokim emes. It's a tremendous thing. The Rambam is not saying it's easy, but it's a tremendous thing. Not every chacham is to this. The Milas Avram Avinu, Shekaru HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu called him my beloved. The Fishlei Ovid Elam Yava, because Avram Avinu served Me'ava. The Amayla Shetzivanu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Alidei Moshe Rabbeinu, Shenemar, V'yafta Es Hashem Alekecha, B'chol Levavcha, B'chol Nafshecha, B'chol Moedecha, U'izman Sheyev Es Hashem Ava Haruyi, Miyad Yasek, Kol Mitzvahs Me'ava. If you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you think about it, you'll do all the mitzvahs B'Ava. So the Rambam, the Rambam elaborates beautifully on this concept of what that serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu shloim las kabel pras. That's not the purpose of creation. Where did it come from? Not to be. It came from really you're chinuch. You grew up. Okay, you're a good boy. You mitzvahs. Good. Go to Gan Eden. And if not, you're going to go to Gehenna. And somehow you never grow out of that. Somehow that stays in because you somewhere along the line you're missing the link to the MS. Now, why do you begin that way? Because you can't speak to a kid any other way. Kid doesn't understand. What does kid understand? You can speak to your kid.
I think my wife learned this from you because she always tells my son that you love Hashem. She doesn't say that's also for
And you know what's important to instill in kids? And Hashem loves you. And Hashem loves you. And no matter what happens to you, Hashem loves you. And this is not the true world. Again, it's hard to go ahead and tell a kid that, but as it's the only way to make it through the sojourn on a difficult. It's difficult. Life is difficult. Everyone has trials and tribulations. It's difficult. But this Kseva Kodesh Baruch Hu Shalom Anas Kabbalah process is a tremendous thing. It's a tremendous thing. It's something that it's a lifetime of avodah, but it's in the end it's as the Ram says, it's MS. In the end, it's MS. Okay, now the very nice Marsha here, guys. The Marsha, he says something interesting. You should be, he's medayik the Lashon. Do not serve Hashem al manas l'kabel pras. Serve Hashem al manas shaloi l'kabel pras. Meaning there's two servings over here. Okay. You know, here there's two servings. There's two servings, this way and this way. What? It's Gemara, yeah, Mishnah Navis and the Gemara we quoted here by Antigna Shisaycha. The Gemara is quoting the Mishnah Navis. So now, like this, there's two avodim. There's an Eved Ivri and an Eved Kanani. If an Eved Ivri gets rewarded, who keeps the money? Eved Ivri. If an Eved Kanani, who keeps the money? The Odin keeps the money, right? So we shouldn't serve Hashem al manas l'kabel pras like an Eved Ivri. We should serve Hashem because ultimately anything we get as an Eved Kanani reverts back to Kodesh Baruch Hu anyway. The Marsha. Very, very nice. It's a nice diuk in the Lashon how to explain the two Lashonos over here. It's very, very, very nice. Okay. So that was it. In B'tar Shem Chepsai, the pasuk says, Amar Rabbi, Ein Adam Loimei Torah El B'Makam Sheli B'Chafetz. What does it mean? Ki in B'tar Shem Chepsai, Shenemar Ki in B'tar Shem Chepsai. Okay, the Ki in B'tar, the first one is part of the last limud. Okay, Chepsai is going on what you like to learn. In other words, you should go ahead. What? El B'Makam Sheli B'Chafetz. Now Ki in B'tar Shem Chepsai. Reb Shimon Rabbi Yasvi Kamei the Rebbe the Pasuk Sidra. They finished their Seder. Rashi says they finished the Ori Parshiyos, Solik Sikfra, and they ended a Sefer. Levi Amar Laisi Lon Mishlei. They asked, you see, you want to know what you want to learn on. So Levi said, I want to learn Mishlei. Rav Shimon Berebi Omer Laisi Lon Tilim. I want to learn Sefer Tilim. Kafila Levi. They forced Levi to learn Tilim. The IC Tilim. Kimati Hacha. When they got to the passing of Tilim, it didn't take long because it was the opening pasuk. Ki Matar Shem Chepsai Parish Rabbi Vamar Ein Adam Loima Torah Ela Mi Makayim Shel Riboy Chafetz. Amalevi Rabbi the Sati Lon Rishus Lamad. He said, and Levi got out of there. That's it. I want to learn Mishlei. I don't want to tell him, and he was gone. Tell him, they call it tell him. Amrav, I didn't look into it. Amrav Dimi Barchama Kol Oislik B'Torah Kodesh Baruch Hu Oislik Chafetzav. Any person's Oislik B'Torah Chaftzoi Kodesh Baruch Hu does his willing. Shneimar Kim B'Torah Hashem Chaftzoi. Right. But Tzadik Oisiv Hashem Mekayim. We see that Amarav Alolam Yilmid Adam Torah B'Makam Shli B'Chafetz. Shneimar Kim B'Torah Hashem Chaftzoi. Okay, a person should learn Torah B'Makam Shli B'Chafetz. Now, guys, what is Rabbi saying that wasn't said above? What was said above? What was said above?
Wait, are they still making
Oh. This is a brisa. I'm a Rebbe. Ein Adam loimei Torah el mimakam shli b'chafetz. What is Rava the Amoira saying different than? Let's get into a brisa, guys. Good. You hear the kasha? We have a brisa. Ein Adam loimei b'Torah el mimakam shli b'chafetz. Good. Be medayik. Okay. Be medayik. Look at the lashon. Vamarava betchila excuse me. La'olam yilmad adam b'taris bim makayim shali b'chafetz. The brisa said mi makayim. Rava said bim makayim. Mi makayim is going on the Torah. This is Marsha, guys. Mi makayim is going on the Torah. You should learn mi makayim where you want to learn. Bim makayim is going on the place. In the place you want to learn. In other words, take into account what you're learning, and bim makayim, and in the place that what from the right Rebbe, the right chavrusis, bim makayim. Shneimar ki b'tar Hashem cheftzai. Avam Rava B'tchila nikras Hashemoy Shakadosh Baruch Hu. First, the Torah belongs to Hashem. U'b'soif nikras al Shemoy. Shneimar b'Torah Hashem Chavtzai u'b'Torasai Yega Yom V'Layla. It's a beautiful thing about Torah, guys. Beautiful thing about Torah, that any object you have in this world is gone. It's not yours. It belongs to Hashem, and certainly you can't take it with you. But your Torah is yours. One of the reasons that the Gemara in Kedushin, can a Rebbe be Michael on his covered? And the answer is yes, because it's his Torah to be Michael on. He can be Michael on. It's his. It belongs to his. I always say over the story, my Rebbe's Zatzal. I say over one most unbelievable stories. I've said it over many times. That my Rebbe was he broke out of the ghetto, and he escaped. He shaved off his beard that they shouldn't know. They were after him because they were after the leaders, and he shaved off his beard. They shouldn't know who he is, and they were waiting online. The Germans were putting them into a ghetto, and it said it was pouring. It was pouring, and there was at the beginning of the line. They heard noises, and it got pissed down that the Germans, what they were doing, you were only able to take. I don't know what you were able to take in, but you weren't able to take anyway. They were searching people, and if they found something you wouldn't have, they were shooting them on the spot. So Rosh Hashiva said that he shrugged his shoulders. He didn't have anything, and nothing. Anyway, he waited there. He said it's pouring. And a person came over to him and tapped him on the shoulder, and he looked, and he said it was one of the richest Jews in Vilna. Vilna was a major metropolis. Again, it was the Yerushalayim of Lita. It was a major piece. I said before the war, I think it's 100,000 people there. Before the war, 100,000. Rosh Hashiva said 100,000 people. After the war, there was less than 1,000. And he said that the person was wearing a thick coat, and he said when the war broke out, he liquidated everything. He bought diamonds and he sewed them into his coat. And he's scared that Germans are going to find it and kill him. So Rosh Hashiva said, "Give it to me." He gave him the diamonds, and
Coat?
gave him the diamonds. He took the diamonds out of the coat and he gave it to Rosh Hashiva. And Rosh Hashiva said, I'm quoting, "Ich bin nicht kein Maven, aber sicher mehr than $1 million gewesen da in Tash." Because I'm no maven, but I can guarantee you there's more than $1 million there in that 1941. As he walked along, he dropped heavy guards. He dropped the diamond, and he put it down, and he pushed it into the ground. And he thought about the pasuk in Yecheskel that we quote. This is what I said over the story on Tisha B'Av. It said by Yecheskel, it says that you're going to take your money, you're going to throw it in the street. And all he thought about was, the Germans took away his money. They can never take away my Torah. They can never take away my Torah. Torah is your Torah. Once you have it, it's yours. No one can take that away from you. That's something you have in Tash. That's something that you have. All of them. He buried them all. He buried them all. So of course somebody says, guy with a road trip, He said a road trip,
That guy survived the war.
Yeah. Statistically, probably not. But anyway, that's what happened. So that's what Torah say. This is your Torah. First it's Hashem's Torah, and then when you learn it, it becomes what? It becomes your Torah. First you should learn Torah and then delve into it. Rashi says, Rabbi, learn from your Rebbe, that the text of the Talmud and its simple explanation should be clear in your mouth. And then person should go ahead and learn, and then you delve into it. But you have to know something. Yeshiva's makbid. We have three Siddharim in Yeshiva. The first one is Be'iyun Rav. The second one, Gemara Rashi, Tosfos, and the third Seder is Gemara Rashi. And you had to finish the Masechta. Because he said you have to know something. I said over once, he once came over to me, I asked him a kasha, told him something, and he says, Leza, what is the chilik tzvishinuns? What's the difference between me and you? I said, I'm a Met fan. I don't know. So he said, he goes, Leza, when learned with a pla bat Gemara. When you learn with a few bat Gemara. When ich learn mit kala Torah kula. So he told me. And then I said to him, I said, Rabbi, halavai das is the egen achilik tzivishon. Halavai, that was the only difference between us. And these conversations that took place 50 years ago, 49 years ago. It's just clear in my mind. Das the chilik tzivishon. Anyway. So first, you should learn Torah, get it straight. V'akach yega. Shneimar b'Torah Hashem. It says v'hadar u'b'Torasa yega. V'amarava lo'ilam ligras inish. Right. V'achakach v'afagav mishakach. You should learn, even though you're going to forget. V'afagav lo'yodem ma'kamar. Even though you know what you're talking about. This is the salvation for Daf Yomi, guys. Right? Yeah. Lo'ilam ligras. You should go ahead and learn. Inish v'afagav the mishkach v'akav lo'yoda. Even though you don't know. Now the lashon of ligras is to learn is an interesting lashon. It's an interesting lashon, and he quotes the pasuk. Listen to this pasuk. Shneimar, Garsa nafshi lesava. My soul it shatters with yearning. Garsa ksiv. It says Garsa v'lei ksiv tachna. So Rashi brings Garsa lashon garesh v'karmel. Shlei hoyu toichin hadak. It wasn't ground. Ela krechayim shel grusois hamachalkim chitim l'shnayim or la'arba l'tzayrich. In other words, goras means to be cut up into small pieces. Tachna means to go ahead and go grind it up and everything. So goras means to go ahead, do what you can, and then, but let's say tachna. Tachna means to go and grind. Ubesoif. So more about Torah. Rava Rami, Ksiv al Gape, which is on wings, Ksiv al Kisei on a chair. Betchila al Gape, originally it's like flying around, Ubasleif al Kisei. So it says the Marsha, you begin to learn Torah, guys, it seems far away, it flies away from you. But the more you sit and learn, eventually it becomes Kisei, it becomes what? More gazettes, more stable. Ksiv, similar idea, Barosh Meroimim, on high places. The Torah seems away on high places. Ukasiv Ali Derech. Betchila Barosh Meroimim. Eventually, first of all, it's on great heights, right? And Lebesleif Ali Derech. The great heights is all this is a person goes out of his way, he doesn't want to be near something, so he goes away to great heights. Remember the Rebbe when he would say a Taisus, what was the first thing you did? Eye contact, right? No eye contact. That was the first thing you did. The last thing you wanted was eye contact. You heard the word Taisus, all of a sudden like this. Everyone's head went down. The worst thing was the eye contact because he thought that, you're listening. Most of us. Ula Rami, Ksiv, Shesei Mayim Mibayrecha, drink water from your bar, which was mashma that's gathered together. Ukasiv and noislim mitoich beirecha, and it's flowing mitoich beirecha. Betchila shesei mimbarcha, ubesaif and noislim mitoich beirecha. Then it'll start off gathered together, then it will be flowing. Amarav, Schaira, Amarav Huna, Maidich Siv, Hoin mehevel yemat, a person that Hoin, his possessions, his wealth, mehevel, if he gets it mehevel dishonestly, yemat, it becomes less. However, koibitz al yad yarbe, but you go ahead and put it together honestly a little bit at a time, then yarbe, it'll begin to increase. Right? If you learn Torah constantly, you just pile it on without chazering, mismayit, it becomes less. Then koibitz al yad, if you go ahead and do a little bit at a time and chazer, yarbe, then it becomes a lot. Amar Rava, Yadi Rabban Elohim Mosa v'Avi Allah. They knew this and they were over on it. That what I learned a little bit and chazed it. The kaim biyadi in the Torah was mekuyim. Amar Rav Shizvi Mishmei the Rav Elazar ben Azariah. Maidich Siv. The pasuk says lo yachroich remia tzidai. A trick hunter won't roast his what? Won't roast his captive. Lo yichlo lo yarich yamim. Sararamai. So the word yachroich is in the trikin of yichya and the yarich. So what's the limit over here? So look at Rashi. Sider Ramai, Shemir Ma'anoshim. He fools people. First wide line. Laharis Kama Ani Chocham. Lahamid Gersois Harbe. V'hu Mishkach Umakatsa Yamav. Right. Tichsiv Kihu Yechayecha V'erchimecha. In other words, this person is learning Torah to trap people, to think that he's a big Talmud Chacham and everything. he was doing it for his own honor, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu's leyachroich, b'lashon leyachroich. He won't live leyichyav leyarech. It's in the trikin. He won't live a long time. Kiyasar Rav Nimi Ama Mashal Adam Shetzatzi Parin. In Mishaber Kanfeha, Torah is like you capture birds. If you break their wings and they can't fly away, shall Shaina Klumikamis Biyadai. So if you go ahead and you capture birds, if you break their Kanfeha by so shall we Shaina Kulamiskayamis Biyadai. So all the birds will remain by you because they won't fly away. So to be Torah by reviewing it. If you don't go ahead and break their wings, what's going to happen? Amos Kamis Biyada will fly away. So too will your Torah. By a case, Shasal Palgay Mayim. Again, these all pasuk can tell him. Like eight that is what is planted al Palgay Mayim. Amid Beryanai, Kate Shasal Velokates Natua. Like an eight that is Shasal Velokates Natua. Rashi brings the difference. Guys, Shasal means it's like a sapling. You plant it, and then it doesn't stay there, and you put it in another place. You go to a nursery, you put it in another place. The Tua means it stays in one place. Anyone learns Torah from one Rebbe, that's Eitz Natua. So therefore, it's speaking about going to different Rabbeim to get different ways and different styles of learning. Amul Rav Chisda Rabbanan, Be'ina the Ema Luchamilsa, said Rav Chisda to the Rabbanan, I want to tell you something, Umistafina, the Shafkisali. I'm scared you're going to leave me, Vaslisai. But he's nonetheless, he told him, Kol Loim Torah Mirav Echad, Ein Roisim and Bracha Lo'ilam. Shavkuhud Vasal Kamei de Rabba. They all left. They went to Rabba. So Amalahu. So Rabba told them, Hani Mili Svara. That's when it goes to means different Rebbeim. That means the Indian Svara. Aval Gemara, but to get everything straight. In other words, to get the basics, to know what you're learning, and to know, not to delve into it, but to get that straight. May Rav Echad Adif. From one Rebbe is better. Ki Heichi Amid Beis the Lishna. You shouldn't have conflicting the shyness again. Torah was to give; it was passed down. One Rebbe can teach one brisa one way, the other one the other way. Can get you famished. So to go ahead and get everything straight before you to go ahead and learn by different Rebbe, we should go ahead and you should go ahead and get it straight. So therefore, you know what? So Rabbi told him go back to Rav Chisda. He told him go back to Rav Chisda. Al Palgei Mayim, the pasuk says, Amrav Tamchim Bar Chani Loi Loilam Yashlis Adam Shenoisov. Shlish b'mikra, shlish b'mishno, shlish b'talmid. Right. So if you look at Rashi, what does that mean? This is too early for Rashi. Fred the Gemara, mi yoda inish kamachaya. A third of your life you should learn this. A third of your life you should learn this. How do you know you're going to live? So it says the Gemara, ki karminon biyuma. Persons go ahead, and his day he should go and take his day and divide it up into three things. Rashi, biyume, beis yomim mikra, 2 days a week chumash, beis yomim mishnah, 2 days a week mishnah, and 2 days a week gemara. V'chein kol shvua v'shvua. That's what you should do. Taisvis guys. Yashas adam shenoisav eliyaimi. Pierce the countries. Beis yomim mikra, beis yomim mishnah, beis yomim talmud. V'loshen liyoimi dachku lefarish kain. Right? Okay. It's hard to explain the loshen liyoimi. But anyway, miyu akati ikul lekshuya miyada kamachai. In other words, you may not know how many years you're going to live. You may know how many during your days also. What's the difference between not knowing how many years and how many days? So therefore, Taisa says, "L'kach nira liyumi b'chol yom." Means the person every day should go ahead and divide it up. L'kach tiknu psuk, guys, psuki hatamid. Therefore, guys, doing kaim chumash. What do we learn? Savas ben Yezom is kabani lach milei shai, right? U'mishnah ezem mekaymin, u'braisa Rabbi Shmuel. Yeah, that's why. Well, most of the time we try to say that, right? Those three things. V'nir l'reinu tam. The anush oiskim v'talmid bavli, dainu kihu dayenu. It's enough. Kihu balul b'mikra b'mishnu b'talmid. Because I mean, it's Sanhedrin. Bavel balul b'mikra balul b'shemen b'talmid. So by going ahead and learning Gemara, that you mekayim all of that. Rebbeinu Tam Shita, very famous places. Should be marked with say kabbanis. At least, even though say kabbanis. Yeah, I mean, you should say. You should say. Talmud. You say anyway. The Talmud, even the girls in our school, the girls they said Talmud because it's mechapa. It's mechapa. Rabbi Klan's that child was the rabbi of the school. He told us that they should learn, and so every day the girls I explain to them what it is. They don't know it, I explain to them, and so anyone who went to Prospect, they just say it every day, and we will also say Ezra McCayman, and then we say Rabbi Shmuel. Right. Okay. The pasuk continues. Asher pirya yitain beitoi. It gives its fruit at the right time. Right. Rashi. In pirya yitain beitoi sheyikva itim l'tayra. It should be kavei itim l'tayra. Rashi Taisvis. Near Lefarish Rav Chanan, Rav Chanan seemed to be Merish Maitza a lot of the Val Taisvis in the Masechta Avodah Zorah. It appears constantly. Hayra means Hayra. It means Yitim period Ita is referring to what, not you being Kaveh eating the Torah, it's referring to what, when you are of the age of Hayra to Paskin, then you should, Yitim Ita, then you should Paskin. Yitim period Ita. The Gemara is going to discuss that. If you go ahead, you kaveh in the Torah, or you go veleu, then it's your leaves won't wither. Then lav alalamed v'amalamed aleim akasav maimed loy kena rishayim. Right on the person learning and the teacher. They're called both. It's not a good thing. Rashi trei mashma loymed amalamdoi period yitim yitai shaloymed voice pri kloima mekayim ashakasav b'Torah v'seika. Rashi says that what is period yitai shaloymed he learns. And he's Mekayim, but it says in the Torah. Amrav Abba, Amrav Huna, Amrav, Ma'idach Siv, Ki Rabim Chalolim Hepilu, right? So many victims he's killed. Zet Talmud Shlayagil Hayra. It's a Talmud who's reached the age of Psak. Umoira is Moira. And Vatsuma Kol Rogeha. And mighty is all that he has slain. Is that Talmud Shagil Hayra Veina Moira? It does not. The one who's considered makes chalolim is a Talmud who didn't reach the age of Hayra, meaning he doesn't know how to paskin, and he paskins. And people who are considered atzuma kol rogeha and mighty are those that he's killed are the ones who he did paskin and he could have paskin. Ba'ad kama ad mem shana, ba'rava ayra, rava or rabba, depending on the Gemara and Avodah Zorah, went ahead and in Rosh Hashanah. So Rava only lived to 40, and obviously, and he paskin. So Hasan B'Shavin, Rashi says he was bigger than anyone else in the town. When it says that you can't paskin and Shavin, they're people equal to you. But if you're greater, then you can paskin at an early age. I mean, you have many people who were Moira Hara. My Rebbe was Moira Hara at 22. He got Stella on the Vilna Bezin at 22. His father-in-law died. And it was a big tumult. But Rabbi Chaim Moisa, Zechet Tzadik Kodesh Avracha Tzchus Yagen Aleinu, said, "You're up." He told him, "You're up." And he said the first time someone came from the Pesach, he goes, "Why can't you ask me? Go ask Chaim Moisa." Chaim Moisa sent the guy back, and Chaim Moisa sent for him, he gave him a message: "You're getting a check, you paskin." And he said once, remember Chaim Moisa told you paskin. He said anytime he paskins, he felt he had the haskama from Chaim Moisa to paskin. So he always said never be scared. He had Chaim Moisa told him to paskin. It was paskin. Anyway, Amrav Acha. Amrav Acha bar Ada Amarav Vimilo Amrav Acha bar Abba Amarav Hamnuna Amarav Shafilu Sicha Chulin Shal Tamid Chacham Tzricha Talmud. Even the Sicha Chulin of a Talmud Chacham, you have to learn from the way they speak. They speak a lot. There's a depth to what they speak. Everything they say is something to learn from, even if it's not the Rei Torah. It's just the Sicha Chulin, not the Rei Torah. You can learn from the way they speak. Talmud Shneimar V'alei Lo Yavo V'chol Sheyasi Yatzliach. Amar V'Shulman Levi David Zeh Kasev B'Torah V'Shina V'Neviim V'Mishulish B'Ksuvim. It's in the Torah. It's doubled down in the Nevi'im, and it's tripled down in the Ksuvim. Kol Oisik b'Torah, the Chasav Matzlichim. Anyone's Oisik in Torah, right? His nechasim will be successful. Chasav b'Torah, the Chsiv Shmartim es Devarai, Estivi Abris Hazois, V'Asisim Eisam, V'Mataskilu es Kol Asher Tasan. So you'll be matzliach in everything you do. Shini b'Nevi'im, the Chsiv, Lo Yom Sefer Torah Ezem Yipicha, and V'Gisa b'Yom V'Layla, and Sefer Yeshua, L'man Tishmar, La'asos Kol HaChasav Boi, and then your way will be what? You'll be matzliach in your ways. So again, in the VM, it's doubled down. Ba'oz taskel. Mishulish b'ksuvim d'chsiv ki mitar Hashem chef tzlei pasuk at the hilim u'b'tayrasa yega yom v'layla therefore you'll be case shasal pagi mayim asher pir yitem be'itoy v'leil le'yavo kol asher yaseh yatzliach. Beautiful. Machos of Alexandria, man boy chaya. Alexandria was calling out who wants life. The Asakul Yalma Lagabe, they all get Konaf, the Asakul Yalma Gabe, they gather together, big crowd. Amile Hovla and Chaya, give us life. Amalahu Mia Yisha Chafetz Chaim L'Tzoyin L'Shon Chameira Shema Yom Adam Nitzarti L'Shoini Meira Svasai Midam Mirma Elech V'Zgora B'Sheina. You might think, okay, I didn't speak any lashon hara, and I don't speak any bad things or anything. So my things, I now go ahead and sleep, like we said at the beginning of Shir Tamalemar. Sumeira V'Asei Toiv. What's Toiv? Mean Toiv El Toiv Shnemar Kilak HaToiv Nesatil Chem Toivasi Al Tazav. Okay, that's the end of Egarita, but we're almost by the Mishnah, so you can go.
Hold the field for us.
Someone left.
Someone
left. Finish Egarita, someone left.
Learned by someone else.
He's going to learn by somebody else, right? And when I read this Gemara, for some reason, I never have any fear that any of you are leaving. If you stay this course this long, we are bound together. Okay, now. Okay. Anyway, he said that you can help build a house of Avodah Zorah when you get to the kippah, when you get to the place where they put the Avodah Zorah, then you can't. It seemed like a dome or something. Okay. Gila kippah v'okashem b'ina ba'avodah k'chav amar Allah so amar Rabbi Yochanan im bona schari muta. And if you do it, then you can have enough in the money you got. Says Pshita. Why? Misham she'avodas k'chavim hein. It's not the Avodah Zarah itself, it's Mishamish of Avodah Zarah. Misham she'avodas k'chavim bein l'Rebbe Yishmael, bein l'Rebbe Akiva, eina asurim ad she'yavodu. And if yet they hadn't served it. So Rabbi Yomi l'nitzcha elu l'avodas k'chav matzma. You sculpted the Avodah Zarah. You sculpted the Avodah Zarah. You shouldn't do it, but like Sasuken, right? But anyway, you can use the money. That's us immediately. Avodah Zarah shel Yisrael is asa. If you make it for Yisrael, asa even before it's served. But Avodah Kechavim until you serve it. So shapir, it makes sense since you didn't serve it yet. You can go ahead and use the money. Immediately it's asa even before it's served. It should be asa to use that money. If you made the Avodah Zarah like the man the Omer, it's asa. But right over here is you put in the last nail. You would a mark of a patish. So if you put in the mark of a patish and you get paid, you can go ahead and use the money. Manka garam lei gemar malacha. What caused it to be an Avodah Zarah? The gemar malacha. So machron achash less beishav puta. Good. In other words, the last thing you did was not worth anything. Now, if you were hired out for the job, then it must be that if you're getting paid at the end, so when you put that last nail in, it's not worth a puta, it's worth the whole job. Ella, you were hired out, so from here Varaya, that schiris is paid mitchila b'yad saif. So you're being paid the whole time, rather than schiris elul b'saif. So alma ksavar yesh schiris. There is schiris when mitchila from the beginning of the job b'yad saif to the end of the job. Because again, if it would be only at the end, then it wouldn't be a shavuot puta. I don't